I went to pick up my son and bring him home. Chun Yan, who had been divorced from me for 3 years, suddenly stood outside the door. He knelt down and reached out his hands, calling my 5-year-old son over to hug him. My son instinctively hid behind me, then remembered something, poked his head out, and raised his voice. Go away! Chun Yan broke down in tears, asking me, Jojo, they said we're divorced. I don't believe it. 3 years after our divorce, he seemed to have forgotten that we were already separated, forgotten his own affair. Buy more groceries, I thought to myself. After inviting Chun Yan inside, I messaged Zhou Ping'an. He replied quickly, thoughtfully asking, does he have any food allergies? I thought carefully and replied, he doesn't eat cilantro. He sent a got it, and only then did I turn my attention back to Chun Yan, who was still crying, his face smeared with snot and tears. Between sobs, his shoulder blades trembled as if he were enduring unbearable grief. Now his tears fell heavily, yet when we first discovered his infidelity and went through the divorce, he hadn't shed a single tear. I handed him tissue paper and messaged his mother, Auntie Chun Yan's here. She replied instantly, Jojo, sorry, the doctor said not to stop him. I'll come get him later. Looking at her message, I couldn't refuse. After my parents died, the Chun family took me in, treating me like their own daughter. They never skimped on clothes or food, even after Chun Yan cheated and we divorced. Though I no longer called him brother, I knew I owed them for their lifelong kindness. I deleted my draft, can he go home alone, and instead asked, has the doctor prescribed medication? I'll send Ping'an to fetch it. Zhou Ping'an, my husband of 1 year, paused. The typing indicator stayed active before he sent a voice message, his voice hoarse. Sorry, Jojo. Troubling Ping'an, my mom added softly, Mom, I want to go do homework. Anren tugged my sleeve. At 5, he was always restless, but this was the first time he'd voluntarily asked to study. When we divorced, he was 2, but as he grew older, he noticed the absence of a father. Zhou Ping'an never hid the truth from him, so Anren knew the man sitting there was his biological father, the one who'd abandoned us. I ruffled his hair. Go ahead. Chun Yan watched him leave, dabbed his face with tissue, then turned to me. He forced a fragile smile, stumbling over small talk. Xiaobao's grown so big. Just yesterday he couldn't walk. He'd grin whenever I held him. I listened quietly, poured hot water over dried jasmine tea in a glass cup, and pushed it toward him. Drink this, it'll soothe your throat. Maybe because I seemed too calm, too detached, he didn't touch the tea. His red eyes studied me intensely. Finally, he choked out, Jojo, you don't love me anymore? At our age, talking about love felt naive, but if anyone had stopped loving first, it wasn't me. I poured myself water and answered the question he'd repeated since walking in. Chun Yan, we are divorced. I stared at the floating jasmine petals, adding bluntly, because you cheated. He froze, repeating over and over, how is that possible? Once, I'd wondered the same. We'd grown up together. After high school graduation, he'd blushed confessing his feelings. In college, we'd studied coast to coast, his train ticket stacking up. Even my roommates praised him. After graduating, he started a business. We cramped in a rental, surviving on 1 bowl of wonton soup when broke. He claimed hunger wasn't real until I split the soup, his tears dropping into the bowl. He'd swore then, Jojo, I promise, I'll make you happy. The next year Anren came. His company thrived. Everything aligned with his vision of happiness, except for his affair. The first clue came when Anren spiked a fever at 1.5. I woke Chun Yan midnight to rush to the hospital. A woman answered his call, driving up in his car. Mr. Chun didn't get enough fun? Next time, dinner's on me. She winked getting out, silent until he explained. Business partner's daughter insisted on driving my junker. Junker? Worth our family's life savings. I didn't press further, just asked, when does this partnership end? Rubbing his temple, he said, 2 weeks. I assumed it was an unspoken agreement. Whatever happened, it'd end in 2 weeks. But at Anren's second birthday, she showed up again. Her polished nails dug into Anren's cheeks as she pinched them. He wailed. When Chun Yan lifted him, Anren's flailing hand knocked off his glasses. She stepped closer, her hair brushing Chun Yan's shoulder, fingers hooking to push his frames up. Seeing me nearby, Chun Yan panicked. You slept together, I said, carrying Anren away. That night, I confronted him directly. He denied it, begging, showering me with gifts. I ignored him until one day, Anren had a low-grade fever. I was rocking him to sleep when Chun Yan slammed a cup. Shards grazed my calf as he yelled. Fine, we slept together. Happy now. I looked down at the red mark on my leg. Quietly, I said, then let's divorce. How is that possible? Chun Yan kept muttering now, but suddenly it felt entirely possible. Head injuries causing amnesia? Stranger things had happened. That woman, Shin Jae-yu, younger, prettier, a wealthy heiress. I only want you, Jojo. Chunyan interrupted my thoughts, repeating desperately, growing up, my only wish was to marry you. Tell me what I did wrong. I'll fix it. Don't leave me. 5 years ago, if someone told me we'd divorce, I wouldn't have believed it. We'd been family for so long. Separating felt like tearing off skin. Now I sighed at his stubbornness. Nothing stays the same forever. He clung harder. I messed up. I'll change. Just don't leave me. Pre-amnesia Chunyan rarely acted so childish. Apologies came wrapped in luxury boxes, friends marveling. Big spender Mr. Chun. But I preferred the homemade feasts he cooked on holidays. Hindsight burned. All signs had been there. Tired of arguing, I welcomed the door opening. Jiujio, I'm home. I hurried to take Zhou Ping'an's groceries. He handed me a cake, whispering due to Chunyan's presence. Long way tired? He ruffled my hair, then called loudly. Any dietary restrictions? Unren burst from his room, jumping into Zhou Ping'an's arms. Daddy! Chunyan stared at Zhou Ping'an shaking. Only then did I realize. He didn't know I'd remarried. Zhou Ping'an approached, mindful of Chunyan's head injury. Allergies? I'll cook. Chunyan's lips trembled silently. Unren dragged Zhou Ping'an away. Check my homework? Please. Standing aside, cake in hand, I felt oceans apart. Breaking the tension, I said, no cilantro, no carrots, mild fish. Zhou Ping'an turned, gaze heavy. Good memory, wife. Later, he pulled me aside. Wife, I have a business trip tomorrow. As he spoke, someone knocked, expecting Chunyan's mom. Instead, Shenjiayue. She barged in. Is Chunyan here? Spotting him, she rushed over. Why didn't you come find me? Chunyan looked up, intuitively replying, You're Shenjiayue. Tears streamed down her face. I went to your office. No one knew where you were. With each photo she showed dates, trips, New Year's. Chunyan's face paled. Each photograph forced him to finally admit the affair. Staring at them, he really realized, we had no future left. He pressed his hands over his eyes, refusing to look. It wasn't me. Jujio, this isn't fair. It isn't fair to me. It wasn't me. But if everything had to be fair, how could 20-some years of my life be calculated the moment I learned he'd cheated? Shenjiayue stretched out her hand and made him look. Chunyan, this is the ring you gave me when you said you'd marry me. The top-grade diamond glittered beneath the lights. Chunyan's gaze fixed on it. His lips trembled. He lifted a shaking hand to his own ring finger, where the plain band we once shared had long been replaced by another. The breath that had kept him upright seemed to leak away all at once. He must have remembered our wedding rings. Back then his company had just found its footing. I'd bought the rings myself. He had been both touched and ashamed, treasuring that ring like a newborn, promising again and again that he would make me the happiest woman alive. Yet in the 3rd year of our marriage, he hurled that same ring to the floor with a sneer that cut 2 ways. You think I can't find another woman? Cheap trinket. Then he slammed the door and left. I picked up the ring and dropped it, along with my own, into the trash. Cheap trinkets, after all. Chunyan stayed silent for a long time. Suddenly he said, Jujio, was the future me such a bastard? Without waiting for an answer, he stood and walked away. As he brushed past me, he left a single sentence. Sorry. That apology arrived 4 years too late, and only because he had lost his memory. When we divorced, he wouldn't let me keep a single advantage. While I was taking care of Unin with all my heart, he soothed me with one hand and shifted our assets with the other. When everything was safely moved, he finally admitted, we slept together. Blame me for being young. Blame me for thinking he still had a shred of sincerity. When I signed the papers, I walked away with almost nothing, less than 10,000 yuan in my pocket. In my eyes, with or without his memories, it was still him. The man who had schemed against me had never apologized. Now because of a ring he said sorry. I found it laughable. If you really feel guilty, I said, go read the divorce agreement. Zhou Ping'an had given me plenty of space to handle the mess. After everyone left, he came out of the kitchen carrying dishes. They're all gone, he asked, pretending surprise. I left the coriander out of the soup. Thought I'd invite him to stay. I said nothing. Once Unin was seated, Zhou Ping'an suddenly spoke. Wife, you're really good to him. He had these occasional lapses. I was used to them. I served him some food, and he brightened at once. That's okay. My wife is good to me too. After he finished washing the dishes, he hurried to pack a suitcase. In a rush, I asked. He answered something else entirely. I'm clearing out space for you and your ex. I got angry, pressed his hands down and demanded, what's wrong? I remembered our wedding day. Aunt Chen had come, taken my hand, and pressed a thick red envelope into it. From Ah Yin, she said. When Zhou Ping'an asked who it was from, I answered on impulse. A colleague. But how could such a thing stay hidden? That night he knew Chunyan was my ex-husband. He looked at me and said, Jujio, you hide things from me, I hide things from you. And hiding back and forth, we fall apart. Meeting isn't easy. I don't want us to scatter. His temper was odd, but he never lost it without without a reason. When he did flare up, he would explain why. Most of the time, he just wanted me to coax him. I reminded him of what he'd once said. Hiding back and forth, we fall apart. He laughed softly. I read that on Baidu. I was studying how to be a good husband. I cupped his face in both hands, then asked me, do what I tell you. His eyes sparkled as if he'd discovered a new trick. First rule, be honest. Honesty might kill him. Zhou Pingyan turned his head, lips pressed shut. I got up and packed for him. When I zipped the suitcase, he snuggled up to me. Wife, you're so good to me. He was the one who'd been good. When Anan fell ill, he scraped together $500,000 without hesitation, throwing everything we needed at the problem. Between us, he was always the one who gave more. He rested his head on my shoulder, voice muffled. Wife, I'm jealous. I'm jealous you still remember what he likes to eat. I have a good memory. I still recall what my college roommates loved or hated. I also remember Zhou Pingyan's tastes. He likes oranges, he likes carrots. But to Zhou Pingyan this wasn't a small thing. You remember mine, but not enough. I want you to forget what he likes. Then give me time. How long? Half a month? A year? 2. His voice turned nasal. I turned to look. He was crying. He wiped his tears on my pajamas. My leg is bad. Plenty of people look down on me. My personality's no good either. Only you'll have me. I'll work hard to earn money. Just don't leave me. I remembered the first time we met, an arranged date. He asked cautiously whether I had any dietary restrictions. So nervous he shattered a glass. Introducing himself, he admitted we'd been university classmates and that he had a crush on me for years. At the end, he rolled up his trouser leg and watched my face anxiously. I didn't mind. My only demand had been produce 500,000, and an fevers had been the warning. After the divorce, his illness struck hard and fast, but early detection meant it could be controlled. Zhou Pingyan agreed at once. The next day, he pressed the bank card into my hand. He acted so much like an ordinary person that I forgot he was missing half a calf. That absence made him insecure and jealous. How did you hurt your leg? It was the first time I'd asked. He answered lightly. When I was little, my father strung me up to a beam. When he finished beating me, he forgot I was there. The next day, the neighbors cut me down, but my leg was already numb. A year married, and only now did I realize I'd never understood his past, his family. Hearing it, my heart ached. I stroked his hair instinctively. He curved his lips, then pressed on. How long until you forget? Give me a deadline. A good memory can be troublesome. I didn't want to lie, so I gave a vague promise. Soon, that sounded like an empty promise. The corners of his mouth drooped again. I added, we'll be together for the rest of our lives. What I remember will eventually all be about you. Another pie in the sky, but 2 pies were enough to coax him into smiling. He said he didn't want to travel for work, paused, then added, but I'll still go, earn more. Everything's getting better. Zhou Pingyan texted me every stop of his trips, and it grew sunnier by the day. Then one afternoon the teacher messaged, Anan had fainted after a fight. By the time I reached the school, he was awake. He burrowed into my arms. Where's Dad? Dad's away on business. He hugged me tighter. I miss him. Only when sick did the tough little boy turn clingy and tearful. I felt his forehead burning. I wanted to take him to the hospital first, and spoke politely to the other parent. I'm sorry, but may I take him to the hospital? He's running a fever and I'm worried. The other child hadn't stopped crying since I entered. The parent refused to budge. We've seen the footage. Your son started it. You owe us an explanation. Anan kept silent. The boy's father blocked me. The teacher tried to smooth things over. You can't leave. My son's hurt. Medical costs, every cent. You'll transfer them now. The man was tall and aggressive. I wanted to settle quickly. How much? 50,000. Even the teacher protested. Anan was never a troublemaker. The father sneered. So my son just starts fights for fun? I held Anan searing hot and swallowed every indignity. I'll take your son to the best hospital for a full checkup. All right? The father finally agreed. Now, I called a cab and went with them. I tried to register Anan first, but before I could move, the man seized my arm. Running away? Wait till my son's results are out. Pushed past endurance, I yanked free and turned cold. Then call the police. I've agreed to compensate. If that's not enough, sue me. He was after a shakedown. Seeing a woman alone, he barred my way. Get lost. People in the corridor glanced over. No one stepped in. All watched the man clutch my wrist. If only Zhou Pingyan were here, flashed through my mind. That was the exact moment Chen Yan arrived. He stepped in front of me. Let go. The man who'd been breathing down my neck suddenly turned amiable. Brother, your kid hit my kid. I'm not asking much. notch, just a checkup. I don't know what Chen Yan murmured, but the man burst out laughing, led his child away, and that was that. A few words between men shrink a crisis to nothing. Only I felt no relief. Aunt Chen urged me, Jujio Anan's fever again, get him examined. They didn't know that 2 years ago Anan had owed his life to Zhou Pingan's 500,000 yuan gamble. Zhou Pingan, right? I'd forgotten to call him. But everything happened at once. Before I could dig out my phone, a nurse needed to speak with me. When I finally sat down, my mind went blank. All I could do was pray this was only an ordinary fever. Chen Yan, still in hospital pajamas, came to my side and handed me a folder. I read the divorce agreement. I'll make sure you get every cent you're owed. This is a share transfer. Maybe my face showed too much surprise. While he spoke, he brushed Anan's cheek and laughed softly. Jojo, the man I become 5 years from now is a bastard. The man I am today isn't. Consider it Anan's birthday gift. But what's the point of dwelling? He won't stay like this. Once his memory returns, the first thing he'll regret is giving me money. Still, why refuse money? I took the pen and signed without hesitation. Anan, half awake, reached out to be held and mumbled, Daddy. Only then did I remember the call I still hadn't made. Chen Yan stretched out his arms. I refused, but Anan mistook the man, struggling toward him with a drowsy stream of Daddy, Daddy. In the end, Chen Yan took him, arms awkward, patting gently. I dialed Zhou Pingan. The ringtone suddenly sounded only a few meters away. My scalp prickled. I followed the sound but found no one. Probably a similar ringtone. I hung up and called again. Zhou Pingan answered at once. Where are you? He hesitated, then said slowly, on a business trip. Anan is sick. I'm afraid it's a relapse. When can you come back? Another long silence. Just as I thought the signal had dropped, he bit out. Not for now. Something's come up. Before I could ask more, Aunt Chen found me and reminded me it was time for Anan's tests. Chen Yan was still carrying him. Aunt Chen couldn't help herself. What a perfect little family. The line went dead. My phone vibrated. 36,000. Every cent he had, transferred to my card. In Chen Yan's arms, Anan burned and murmured, Daddy. Aunt Chen seized the moment. Children always long for their real parents. I'd never once, in all my years, thought of looking for my birth parents. I didn't argue. I simply took Anan back. The results came quickly. The illness had indeed returned. My mind reeled. Last year's suffocating nights outside the ward flooded back. The doctor reassured me. The success rate was over 90%. Noticing my daze, he glanced at Chen Yan. Father of the child, you need to be ready. I cut in. He isn't. Doctor, tell me what I need to do. Admission, prescriptions, everything moved fast. When Anan opened his eyes, it was late. The drugs still dragged at him, but he refused to sleep. After the doctor left, Anan blinked and whispered, Mummy, I was wrong. I hit a classmate. His first words on waking were an apology. Why? I asked. He said I have no dad. He lied. My dad's the best. Chen Yan and Aunt Chen had just walked in. Aunt Chen laughed and nudged Chen Yan. Hear that? Anan's praising you. But Anan closed his mouth, and the room went still. In that strange hush, he spoke again. Mummy, can we call Dad? I miss him. A child is simple. Whoever treats him kindly is Dad. The dad he meant wasn't Chen Yan. I dialed Zhou Pingan. The faint ringtone sounded nearby again. Anan took the phone. Daddy, when are you coming back? I miss you. He glanced at me cautiously, then added, I don't dare sleep. I sat beside him. Through the receiver came Zhou Pingan's soft laugh. He coaxed Anan, promising to negotiate with the nightmare monsters. Believe Daddy, go to sleep. Under his gentle voice, Anan calmed and obediently closed his eyes. I took the phone back. Shall I come pick you up? Silence. Aunt Chen spoke again. Jujio, after all, Anan isn't his real child. Click. The call cut off. Your brother knows he was wrong. Look at you. Mom, go home first. Chen Yan interrupted. She swallowed her words, sighed, and left. I messaged Zhou Pingan again. Do you want me to come get you? Chen Yan sat by Anan and said abruptly, I'm having surgery in 3 days. I bear grudges and keep them small. The things he'll do 5 years from now make me dislike even the man he was 5 years ago. I addressed him for the first time that day. When you wake up, I hope the first thing you do isn't demand those shares back. He laughed short and sharp. If the future me is really as you describe, he probably will. I didn't answer. His laughter died. His voice dropped into bewildered guilt. Jujio, all I ever wanted was for you to be happy. I never imagined the one making you unhappy would be me. A message popped up from Zhou Pingan. Yes, come get me. Where? 4th floor corridor. I asked a nurse to keep an eye on Anan and left. Chen Yan saw me stand and added, Jujio, will Zhou Pingan make you happy? He blocked my way, determined to rest and answer, as if my happiness were the most important thing in the world. As a child, I pinned everything on Aunt Chen, desperate to believe I still had a home, so I obeyed every word. Later, with Chen Yan, I pinned everything on him, convinced that if I loved him enough, he would love me back. The happiness I begged for ended up light years from what I got. Now I answered, I'll make myself happy. I walked to the stairwell alone, footsteps soft. Pushing open the door, I met Zhou Ping'an's eyes immediately. Tears streamed down my face before I could speak. He stood rooted, eyes scarlet, crying, Jujio, you don't want me anymore. I stepped closer to pull him away, but he wouldn't budge. I tilted my head. He kept repeating, you don't want me anymore. I brushed a light kiss across the corner of his lips. He went silent at once. Tell me why. He swallowed, then said, I saw Chenyan give you money. You don't need me anymore. When we got together, I'd said bluntly it was for the money. On our wedding day, he'd said, I don't want you to marry me for money. If you don't love me, if you only pity me, that's okay. But back then, all I could think of was the 500,000. I believed we were simply partners keeping house, so I never answered him. He decided I stayed only for the cash. He went on, voice thick, and my leg. I can't carry an in. He can. He can run to see you, I can't. He must have arrived at the hospital long ago and watched Chenyan help me, feeding both self-doubt and jealousy. My heart cramped, sore and swollen. I know you don't love me. I've seen how you were with Chenyan, waiting for him. After class, walking hand in hand, tipping your head to ask if your lip gloss looked nice. You never asked me. You don't like holding my hand either. That line about secretly crushing on me in college wasn't just talk. He really had seen Chenyan and me back then. But nearly 10 years have passed. Of course I've changed. He spilled everything in one breath, then gave up. If you want a divorce, fine. I won't stop you. He buried his head in his arms, refusing to look at me. I crouched down so we sat side by side. I'm no good at comforting people, so I picked the last thing he'd said and explained. I don't hold your hand because you walk with a little sway. So cute I'm afraid you'll trip. I'd rather hold your arm to keep you steady. He cut me off astonished. You think I'm cute? I didn't answer. He suddenly reached out. Take me home, Jujio. I want to go home with you. Every time he gets angry, it's all thunder and no rain. One soft word melts him. I took his hand. Seeing how carefully he held mine, I decided to say what I knew he'd love to hear. No matter what Chenyan does, I'll still hate him. But even if you do nothing, I'll still love you. He was completely soothed. Wife, you're so good to me. I shouldn't have let my imagination run wild. But this temper of mine won't change. That's okay, I said. Next time I'll coax you again. In high spirits, he followed me back to the ward and stayed by Anan all night. The next morning, Anan spotted him and chirped, Daddy. Zhou Ping'an's face was calm, giving no sign of the man who'd fallen apart in the stairwell the night before. He leaned down to touch foreheads with Anan. Does it hurt? Nope. Anan shook his head shyly. I'm 5 already, nothing hurts. He understood life and death now. He never said hurt in front of me, but to Zhou Ping'an he whispered, Daddy, am I going to die? Zhou Ping'an held his hand. No, people are tougher than you think. Look at Daddy's name. Your mom gave it to me. Back then I was scrawny, sickly, missing a leg. Everyone laughed at her for naming me Ping'an, safe and sound. But here I am, safe and sound. Believe me, you'll be fine too. His words steadied me as well. I can give Anan plenty of love, yet some kinds of strength only a father can give. Zhou Ping'an shuttled around the hospital with me until Anan was wheeled into surgery. Only when I finally sat did I remember his leg. I hurried to borrow a wheelchair. Days of running up and down had pushed him past his limit. When he removed the prosthesis, the liner was soaked with blood. Why didn't you say anything? I forgot, he said simply. I only remembered after Anan went in. I said nothing, just wiped the stump with clean gauze until the cloth in my palm was crimson. He reached up and brushed the tears off my face. Chenyan arrived at that moment. One look at Zhou Ping'an's empty trouser leg and he blurted, disabled, and I knew his memory had returned. Zhou Ping'an stayed unruffled. Realizing his gaffe, Chenyan fumbled for words. Jujio, don't worry, Anan will be all right. Now that he remembered, all I felt was hypocrisy. During the divorce he'd shown no interest in custody. Anan had been disposable. Trash. The year I took in, and from hospital to hospital, we'd been in the same city. Did he truly not know? He simply didn't want us clinging to him. I didn't want Chenyan to utter Anan's name. I have no interest in your company, I said, but say one more word and I won't mind making it change hands. The shares the amnesiac Chenyan had signed over happened to give me majority control. I didn't mean, he stammered. Then what do you mean? Starting to feel guilty now. Perhaps the contempt on my face was too plain. He fell silent, sat in his hospital gown, and waited for the operating theater light to turn green. 2 hours later the doctor emerged. Zhou Ping'an, still seated, listened intently while Chenyan jumped up, gripping the surgeon's hand. Doctor, how's my son? I'd worried Zhou Ping'an might feel small, but he only focused on every word. Watch his diet, plenty of fluids, low-grade fever is normal. Don't worry, a few months and he'll be discharged. At the last sentence Zhou Ping'an finally exhaled. Anchin bustled up. Thank heavens, my grandson's safe. She turned to me. Jujio once Anan's better. Let him stay at home. I'll tidy up his room today. Let's all go see him together. By home, she meant Chenyan's. By all of us, she clearly didn't include Zhou Ping'an. I'd never contradicted her before. Zhou Ping'an wheeled himself away, making an excuse. I'll fetch some water, giving us space. Only I knew he was off to hide and cry again. I saw the rims of his eyes were already red. At the corner, the old wheelchair jammed. I broke free of Aunt Chen's hand and ran over. I'll take you to see Anan. He stopped me. Jujio, do you want them visiting Anan? Do you want him living in their house? No. Then that's my answer, wife. Anan has my surname. Once he's discharged, I'm taking him home. Aunt Chen ignored Zhou Ping'an and spoke only to me. I just want to see my grandson. All the toys you played with as a child are still there. Anan will love them. Zhou Ping'an turned to me. Seeing the struggle on my face, he answered for me again. I'll buy them for him, don't worry. Aunt Chen waited for my decision. I clenched my fists and finally spoke. It's better if you see less of Anan. Once I started, refusing wasn't so hard. When custody was decided, none of you wanted him. Now he has a father. Your visits only embarrass everyone. I raised you for 20 plus years. Aunt Chen looked as if I'd slapped her, then hurried to explain. Jujio, I didn't mean. I raised you like a daughter. I stepped closer. How much do I owe you? Name a price. I'll pay in full. Some rotten ties are best severed at the root. Only I'd lacked the courage. My cowardice had hurt the people beside me. Jujio, my mom. Say one more word and your company changes owners. After a long standoff, they backed down. Zhou Ping'an's eyes sparkled. You were amazing. And in that instant, I thought of Chenyan 5 years ago. How love could turn so suddenly. Before I could dwell, Zhou Ping'an noticed my wandering mind and sulked. You're thinking about someone else. I admitted honestly. Yes, Chenyan from before. How could someone who loved me so much change overnight? Zhou Ping'an knew what I meant. Because once he had money, he had more choices and lost his footing. The amnesiac Chenyan is just off balance. Give him a year, 2, 3, could he still stay true? I asked on impulse. What about you? Uncharacteristically serious, he replied. Jujio, I'm a man too. Don't rely on me completely. The day you see anything off, take the money and divorce me at once. I laughed at his earnest face. Days earlier he'd been red-eyed over a misunderstanding. Now he was solemnly teaching me not to trust him. If I truly stopped believing, he'd be off crying in some corner again. I only need to believe you, he added. I pushed his wheelchair. Come on, let's wait for Anan to wake up. Later a friend told me Shinjiayue and Chenyan never married. In fact, their last meeting ended in a spectacular fight. The Shin family demanded Chenyan sign a prenup declaring all the bride's assets separate property. Chenyan's face went cold. He refused. Shinjiayue, who always obeyed her parents, wouldn't budge either. Chenyan retaliated by releasing photos of Shinjiayue seducing him. Both sides tore into each other, one screaming, "If you love me, why won't you sign?" The other yelling, "I divorced for you. Why should I sign?" My friend laughed. Dog eat dog. Just a joke for you. I laughed too. Their ending was more theatrical than I'd imagined. The day Anan was discharged, the sky was cloudless. Zhou Ping'an's stump was badly injured. He had to go home in a wheelchair. Anan, always well-behaved, nestled in his arms and whispered, "Daddy, does it hurt?" "Nope." But Anan pouted. "It must hurt. When I bump the table it hurts. You must hurt too. It happened over a decade ago. Doesn't hurt anymore." Only then did I realize again how little I knew him. I hadn't even known when he was injured. He steered the wheelchair. Anan curled against him. I looked at him. "Zhou Ping'an, I don't know you at all." He tensed. "So you want a divorce?" I laughed at his panic. "No, I want to start dating you."